Good afternoon. Today, we will look at the Daily Boyd, at the 1310 riot. Let's see which owl is the default here. What is so visually new and noticeable here? So, by default, Farfetch 23rd is installed. There is no Flash player, of course, in the system, and it is as it were in the repositories, but the truth is version 11.2. If you need the latest Flash player, you will have to install the Chrome or Chrome Angle, and then, its Chrome seems to be supplied without a Flash player, but it is possible to put a version with Chrome there. The difference between Chrome and Chrome is insignificant, except that Chrome, that is Chromium, is an open source project. So we look at all four. One is our lens, video search, so that he goes to YouTube, right? So the music, well, that's it. This is for those who want to buy it. Let's say, I think it's easier to install some browser plugin, pump up everything you want from some contacty, Odnoklasniki, or just get involved in some other site there or something like that. Well, there are, as it were, candy wrappers, that is, fans buy music. But I understand it's interesting to buy music on the original, it's just to buy it in an MP3 file. I don't know. Someone may like it. I would, for example, this lens, these, I would immediately try to dispose of them somehow. They are there, you see the packages in the repository, the same synaptic, they can simply be removed. Here. One thing I will say is that I personally am not going to switch to this version because I try to use only the else versions. These intermediate versions, they are, as they say, one-on-one, for example, can be quite stable. The next one can generally work terribly. Someone has the opposite. Let's say, I remember how the first time I tried Riot, it was version 8.10 she kind of. More precisely, it was Infralinux 8.10. But they were the same Ubuntu 8.10. They were no different, except for a special version of the Office, and there were some little things there. They had their own repository. Well, there everything was wildly falling and buggy. The same thing happened just with Windows, that is, Windows I say. The Riot has 8.10, but when 9.04 appeared, everything changed. The system was just awesome. Everyone who remembers, should remember, yes, this version of 9.04, it worked great. When 9.10 came out, it was wild horror. And even then the else appeared. My respect for else in general appeared after version 10.04. It was, well, I don't even know how to say it. It's very stable. It's, say, like for Macs, probably there will be 10 and 4, let's say a Tiger, yes. It still stands for many, and it works just great. This is a very stable version. People are sitting, they may have some old software there, but they still work on it. Then after 10.04, I tried 10.10 this. It was generally a hellish version. It was wildly buggy, wildly buggy. Let's say, there was such a joke with Vine, that it was simply impossible to even use Vine, for example. To launch the rights for some application, the tick just disappeared by itself. Yes, I just don't want to remember these versions. Right now I'm using 12.04, and I'm happy, everything is fine, and there are no problems with performance, not with stability. But here everything is new, so interesting, but I'm not really sure that all this will suit me in terms of stability. So well, we'll see. They say that the new Nautilus was very much raped. Namely, he got on the topic of functionality. Right night. So that's something I didn't understand. Will the global menu work for me? So for example, yes, you can compare. Here with this, well, like a Nautilus, everything works for me. The global menu is working. But here, I think the problem is not in the global menu. Most likely they did something like in Dolphin and Sneakers, moved the menu to another place. But why? This is of course incomprehensible. And there were rumors that they wanted to fork, or rather, they had already forked a lot of times. Nautilus, let's say in the old, still good old Nautilus 2 and 32, fork, well, are called Kaya in the mate shell. That is, mate is the same before Sarah, the good old GNOME 2. Then there seems to be some kind of nano, there is something else there, and the whole problem is that they are just engaged in perversion. I can't say anything in favor of GNOME 3, nothing at all. Why do a beautiful shell, which was just normally adapted for staff, for laptops, when, well, in the form of the interface is made as for mobile phones? This is very inconvenient. Here is Unity, for example. Yes, it has already been worked out properly for desktop. For a tablet, it seems to me. It will even work well for a netbook, laptop. And GNOME 3, for example, on some 21st monitor, there's a 21-inch monitor. Well, on an ordinary home computer, it will look just wild and moronic. Someone may like it, but people are different, right? There is someone 47 years old riding a tricycle, and he will shout that you are the best transport. I think you'll agree with me. As I understood it, Nautilus 3.8, so I can't find any information about the program here. I'll start it here with the settings, right? These are not settings either. Well, I clicked the file. And this? I didn't understand, so is it Nautilus, or is it just a file called? What the hell is this? Well, as I understand it, this is Nautilus, but why is it just called a file? Cool file manager. I understand there is a very big general derailment going on the Finter. Initially, he always mowed the Nautilus very much. Unity, she mows down very much by herself. About Stan, that is Mako's. There's something I don't understand at all. Either they probably already may have really forked it, and just changed the copyright name already, that is, it's not Nautilus anymore. Just some kind of file, or we won't change it. It looks like the same Nautilus, though. Well, the panel. This is one of the reasons why I will not switch to this version yet. I'll be waiting at the Riot, at 1404. So what is this? I don't want to buy shit from you. Fuck you. Forgive me for the mats. I don't want to buy shit from you. What is it? Well, this is an interesting repository. I understand. They are not such a development. I like it. Okay, I'm not going to climb here. I'm not even registered there. We're looking. The control center, that is, this application center. I wanted to note one thing, that probably up to version 11, even 11.10, I generally thought that nothing changes at all. From year to year, they are constantly breaking something, breaking, destroying. In fact, only the graphical shells change there. Well, everything is spinning too fast, everything is spinning. And now I noticed that everyone, well, didn't calm down a little, you could even say so. We are already overkill with the guys. So even I praised the Riot here 04, yes, but if you compare, for example, there is 10.04. With the version 8.04, the only difference is that the buttons move to the left, right. The difference is that there is such a thing as pi. That is, it is quite a convenient thing. This is what I notice with my own eyes. I'm there, well, not a hyper mega nerd, who will be there every mini function there. For example, for an unshaven admin, yes, I'll be there shouting, wow, this is a cool function. I need a computer to entertain me. Watch movies, listen to music, surf the internet. That's how, and here I can say that they did very little to improve it. It was, I can't say what was there. Some kind of innovation, but there was no shit at all. Here, the buttons have moved to the side. Yes, all the gnome buttons, what was there, 2 and 30 gnomes. The application center was a little better. Well, the theme was not changed, everything turned purple. Yes, everything is the same, nothing has been simplified. Now, for example, if you look at the version 12.04, everything has become, well, just cool. Let's say, I have to climb in the console very rarely. Very rarely, if you had to act there all the time before. I've almost forgotten about it now. Well, let's see how the application center differs. It just seems a lot. For example, you just won't see much. Some new features that exist. Since I'm sitting, this is a resmulator. It just seems like you won't notice the whole buzz of performance, of course. I don't know anything about stability. One thing I will say is that it makes no sense to chase after these buttons, these smooth icons there, rounder buttons, there are these chips there. There is no sense. Everything, all the software, and all the software that is under, for example, the Riot has 13.04, and will be under 13.10, will be released under 12.04, for a very long time. It makes no sense to go from 12.04 to the intermediate 9-month version, which will be supported for only 9 months. There is no such thing, it's just a perversion, I think so. Here, it's like, for example, a friend writes to me there, he says, wow, he says, what kind of Windows do you have, he says. And then I had it for a long time, I really needed Photoshop. I had an additional Windows 8 and 1, and it stood on me only because I downloaded it by that time just to look at it, right? She was different there, well, as you know. For example, Windows 7 is a little less performance there, but it is much more stable, and more beautiful. For example, for a home computer, than Windows 8.1. Here, and the person just shouted that 8.1 is cool, just because she had the number 8 and 1. When I started explaining to him that there are no special differences there, but all these advantages are mainly made for a mobile phone, and that because of the failure of the company, Microsoft's shares are falling very strong, that Steve Ballmer will retire in a year. Only then he scratched his head. Yes, that's what he thought. The fact that this is a real operating system, it really failed, it failed. So, the same thing is here, but it's not about the failure of Microsoft. The fact is that it makes no sense to chase after these numbers. These intermediate versions are for people who are actively involved in the development, and their ultimate goal is, of course, else. And these intermediate 9-month releases are, I can't say that they can be used there normally. Of course you can. Well, who knows that the update is in Revolt? These are every 9 months. There were 13 or 18 months of support from this, I don't remember. Well, the lucky ones who will be updated in 4 versions, and nothing will break, and this will not fall off. It's very cool. I'll count. Here, Lecheski is updated without problems. So let's see what else we have here. This thing started to remind me of the icon on the window, and it's on the window. The application folders in Stan are very much starting to resemble. Well, as if the Canon's company, she has never denied that they are very mowing under the Yoast. Moreover, they're not going to compete, and over the last 2 or 3 years there, in fact, even such thoughts come, that they will soon be able to compete quite well. Let's look at 14.04. Here I have very high hopes for this system. Icons have become much nicer. The lenses are new. So, cool. It's really cool. In general, to be honest, I don't see any mega features that well, for example, lack. If you are mega psychopaths there, lovers of buying music there, something else, please come there, boy. I think you'll agree that while I don't see the point at all, what's so cool here? A poor file manager. I hope by 14.04, they will either confuse him, or really put some normal Ford on him. This is not the Nautilus that was before. It can't do shit at all. These are all sorts of storage services. Well, if I want to store files there, then I'll sketch out what I need through the Yandex disk browser, or just put some firewood here. Yes, there are already a lot of all these things. What's here? What is the core worth? Apparently 3.8 is worth it. So let's see what other programs we have here. Anyway, by the way, system toilets. The set of programs is the same as usual, but do not look that there is a lot of memory, because now my memory is divided into 2 systems. Moreover, I have a running virtual box. Skype is running. There is still a bunch. Altogether, 2 systems of Bison. Eat this much and this, and there is no 500 meters. As for the processor, it seems to me that it really is, that I have 1 core enabled in this battery. Well, it's coming up now. After all, there are 2 systems. But it's not even Alpha 3, and not Beta, it's just such an intermediate image between Alpha 2. And between there the next release of some kind it will be, I do not know what it is there, or Alpha 3 will be, or Beta 1 will be. It's too early to judge, but think for yourself. I personally think that if you are not actively involved in the development of Linux Ubuntu, there is no point in switching, for example, from 12.04 to 13.10. In the network, all software that will run at 13.10 will be launched at 12.04. All programs, logins, schmagins and everything will work at 12.04. These are all sorts of lenses. This is all sorts of rubbish. It seems to me that most of this will work at 12.04. At 12.04 and 3, Unity began to work much faster than it worked. For example, there is just 12.04. The very first time out, right? I don't think this is Unity. It will work somehow. What do we have here? In theory, there should be Unity 8, and the same in theory. I do not know if it still works for X11, and already works for the world, and it has no idea. But you should already be scared of these words, because you can imagine how important it is still, and how it will work, for example, with some toys, yes, for example, with Steam, is still unknown. Therefore, let 13.10 remain for developers, and for testers fans, and we will wait for the Riot 14.04.